Hi, algebra students. Let's talk about writing equations in point-slope form and how point-slope form can help you. So point-slope form is exactly what it means. We're given a point, so we call it x1 and y1, and we're given the slope, which we know is m. So the equation for point-slope form is y minus y1 equals m times, in parentheses, x minus x1. So when we're looking at point slope, we've got a value in here for y. We've got a value in here for x. The x1 and the y1 tell you that it is the point. And then we also have a value that we plug in or we substitute for the m. So the plain old x and the plain old y stay variables in your problem. So if I look at this graph, in the example that I've got over here, I've got myself a point, x1 and y1, and then I can also figure out the slope, so my rise over run. So I need m equals rise over run, or perhaps I'll use the formula m equals subtract the y's over subtract the x's. So I have to know those two things. I don't know if I have 2 points or I don't know if I have just given the slope, but somehow I need to know the slope. So here's the important part. Let me move this over. I'll just move this up here. So you can use the point slope form to help you find the y equals mx plus b equation of a line. In the end, I'm always going to want y equals mx plus b, but point slope is a super great tool in order to find y equals mx plus b. There's a couple ways you can do it, and I think that this is the one that makes the most sense. So we're going to use this. That's why we're doing section 4.3 before we do section 4.2, because I want you to see how point slope form can be incredibly helpful in getting what you need to do. But first, let's look at point slope. So if we're going to write an equation given a point and the slope, right? It's shouting at you. Point slope tells you that you're going to use the point slope formula. You're first going to use the point slope form to start with. We know that we're going to have to find a point or given a point and given the slope, or find it. Step 2 is to substitute in the m, so replace the m with an actual number, might be a fraction, that's okay. We like fractions better for graphing anyway. And then plug in the x1 and the y1. I do want to make sure that I caution you when you put in the x1 and the y1, watch the signs. Because if I put in an x1 and say x1 is -2, when I put that into here, it's going to become x minus -2, which becomes an x plus. So you just have to be super careful when you put those in there. And then I added a third step if you've got my notes. From there, we will eventually, tomorrow, distribute and solve for y. That's how we're going to get to y equals mx plus b. Right now, I'm really concerned about 1 and 2, making sure you know what's happening here. So that's our end goal. So let's say I've got a problem. It says, write the equation in point slope form for a line that passes through -1, 5 with a slope of -3. Then graph the equation. Well, honestly, let's do this one according to the directions. Let's do the next one where we switch it up. So it says to write the equation in point slope form. So that means I need to know that I'm using this formula. And I need to also be very aware that I'm going to need to put a point in and I'm going to need to put my slope in. Well, it tells me all of that, right? So I know that I stick with y. Here is my x and y, 1 and 1. It's the first point and only that's given. Here is my m of -3. So when I put my y1 in, I'm going to have y minus 5 because I'm just putting the 5 in for that problem. The m is a -3, start my parentheses, and then when I put in a -1 in place of that x1, I'm going to have x minus -1, which we all know becomes an x plus 1. There's my point slope formula. Starting after this section, I'm going to start asking you to put it into y equals mx plus b form. We can talk about that in a minute, but let's graph this guy. So we're used to graphing with y equals mx plus b. I put b on the y-axis, and then I move rise over run. Well, I don't have a b in this one, but I do have a point at -1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there is a point. I do the same thing. I use my slope. So remember, m equals -3. You can always stick a 1 under it, so we know rise over run. So that means I'm going to rise a -3, which means I'm going to go down 3. And then I'm going to go right 1 because I only have a negative on one part of that fraction. Down 3 and right 1. If I ran out of space going down 3 and right 1, I could always go up 3 and left 1. And then I'm going to connect those dots. If you're ever, I hope you connected better than I did. If you're ever not sure about, do I go down 1 and right 3 or left 3? Which direction do I go? You can always think about, if I connect those dots, will it be a negative slope? My line is sloping downwards if I read it from left to right, so I know I've got a negative slope. All right. Number 2, write a slope-intercept formula of an equation with x-intercept 4 and a slope of -3, 2. Then graph it. This is a really sneaky problem, and there's a lot of things happening here. I wish I had just changed this to, whoops, I meant to cross that out. Let's just change this to point slope formula. It's sneaky because of that, but that was my bad. The other reason it's sneaky is because it gives us a point, but not really. An x-intercept is a point on the x-axis, right? So it says I've got an x-intercept of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got a point on the x-axis at 4. This is a point. If I were to put that in an ordered pair, what does that look like? Well, from the origin, I go right 4 and up 0. Or my x value is 4 and my y has to be 0 if it's an intercept. And then it does tell me that my slope is -3/2. So from that point on the x-axis, the only point I've got, that means my rise over run. I'm going to rise -3 again. So I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3. This time it tells me to run 2. Down 1, 2, 3. If I ran out of space, I could always go up 3 and left 2, and then connect those guys. Put arrows on either end because it does keep going. So that one gave us the point. So if I'm going to put that into my point slope formula, this is my x and y, 1 and 1 that was sneakily given to me, and I know my slope. So I'm going to do y minus 0 equals my slope, -3/2, and then x minus 4. If I were really wanting to think about this problem, I would just say that's the same as y equals -3/2 with the x minus 4, because y minus 0. Also, I do want to make sure I point out that this slope was written as negative and then 3/2. You put that negative anywhere on the fraction, so that's the same as -3/2, which is how I wrote it. It's the same as 3/2. We did all those things on the graph. We went down 3 and right 2, but I also went up 3 and left 2. So look at where that sign is. It tells you where to go. All right. Hopefully you are feeling okay about these problems. I'm going to leave the last 2. And you are all set. Thanks for hanging in there.